Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for what is it? Is today Tuesday or is today Wednesday? Right? It's Wednesday today, right? No, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday today, and well, that's a great way to start off today's video. It is Tuesday today. It is the 27th, but where I'm confused is there's 2 more days left of the month. We end February on a Thursday, not on a Friday. The Friday will be the first of the month. So that said, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through in this video is for information purposes only. Yes, but I am very focused on, 2 more days of the month. I think it's going to be, an interesting end of the month. I think one of the things that I always try to remember or keep in the back of my mind is that you can see some type of, portfolio rebalancing that comes on the end of the month. It's really weird. Sometimes we see, maybe a move from equities to bonds or vice versa, or some type of a move from value to growth, or sometimes in sectors. But then what usually happens is on the first of the month, then there's new buying that typically happens. I say typically because it's not every single time, but you could see, for example, take a look at January 31st, right? I remember because I was not happy with my performance on the last trading day of the month, right? And we were down 1.6%, and then right back on Monday and on Tuesday, or the first and the second of February, we gained all that back in 2 days. So, so to me, sometimes the end of the month could be like a little bit of a pitfall, right? Both in like the performance of the indices and your P&L if you're not being careful with what you're doing. So I bring that up because, of course, we've got a couple days left. We're going to have some economics too that are going to hit the last trading day of the month. Tomorrow too, we'll get some numbers like GDP, which is great to talk about at cocktail parties if you're into that thing, because it normally doesn't move the market that much because it's a lagging indicator. But if the number is really out of consensus, you will probably see the dollar and bonds move a little bit. What I would be more concerned with is the PCE deflator, right? That's the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation, not necessarily the market's preferred gauge. The market gets so focused on CPI, but that comes on the 29th of the month, and that is the last trading day. It's a leap year, so last trading day of the month coming in 2 days. Let's talk about today's price action. A little bit of rotation on the tape today, some different areas performing. And that's of course what I look to do at Tribeca Trade Group is take advantage of when there are some rotations and some groups that are not as popular as what everybody's talking about. And of course I'll play the popular names too, when there's momentum in them too. But we're one of the things that I pride myself of being is like, very, very early in some of the rotational moves that you're seeing, and really try to take advantage of those moves. So let's that said, let's talk about what happened today. Well, I mean, there was I was talking about the B and the B, basically Bitcoin and biotech. All right, and for 2 days in a row, we've seen a pretty healthy move in those two areas of the market. The crypto stocks, which behave a little bit differently, right? And I'm referring to the Coinbase, the CleanSpark, the Mara, right? They act a little bit differently than what the underlying, Bitcoin and Ethereum do, and they actually gave back some of the gains. They still finished up, not too shabby, up 1.8% for the day. But if you were trying to buy those things today, you probably didn't have too great of a performance doing that, because they were the worst group from the open. And that's why I really kind of concentrate, of course, on the overall performance for the day, but also the performance of, basically what happened since the open. Um, Before the open, as well as all through the trading session, biotech was just a huge performer. I'll get to that chart in a second, but it's kind of exciting to go through some of the moves that happened today. Micro caps, you've heard me talk about micro caps now for a couple days, because they really started to do something interesting on Friday, right? And I think that's the first time that I mentioned that. I was like, wow, look at that. The micro caps, actually outperformed. And this is the third day that you've seen IWC, which is, the smallest companies out there, Today up the biggest of the 3 days, up 1.8%, and that gets you to up 3.5% over the last 3 days. So of course, like everybody always likes to talk about the small caps too. No slouch there, up 4 days in a row. Not as good as the micro caps, but still up 3.1% over the 4 days. So strong performance out of there. And it wasn't a complete breakdown. Even though like the Qs looked a little bit weak, depending on what time you kind of looked at where we were during the day. They still finished up on the day, up 1/4%. Coming back there at the end of the day, and SPY finished up 0.2 of a percentage point. So before I get to some of the sector moves, even though we're talking about them now, in regards to the charts, what I thought was pretty interesting is, just something that, and I talked about this in yesterday's video too, right? A mini head and shoulders, right? This is just the 1 hour chart, so this is really short term stuff. But what I noticed that I said that, if we break, we're going to have support right behind it. And we actually bounced there. I tweeted this out a couple hours ago. I'm like, hey, well, we touched the bottom of value and we're starting to bounce. Right. And we made a nice effort, so a little bit sideways for the S&P this week. But overall, it's not to say that the overall market is sideways. There's certainly things that are doing okay. Now, if by chance, something causes some volatility this week, the next area that I would watch is this 200 period moving average. But so far so good. Let me just back this out. We'll talk a little bit about what we're looking at in terms of in terms of the trend, right? Because again, there's not really much that you can analyze. Some people try to. I see some people like. Never mind. I'm not even going to go into. But I wouldn't overanalyze what you're seeing here in the S&P chart, right? We're kind of just digesting. We got a little bit extended away from the 5 period moving average, and we kind of found some support there. So it is what it is. This is a trend, right? And our job as traders, right, is to stick however long that trend lasts, whether it's in the S&P or IWM or some sector or a stock. It's to try to just remain in the stock for as long as you can while it's doing good things. Now, of course, once it changes and starts to move the other way, then it's a different story. We want to make adjustments when that happens, right? And Qs like are pretty close to like having to possibly make a little bit of an adjustment here, right? Because they just seem like they've kind of lost some momentum. But again, we're talking about super short term, right? Um, and again, this is going to look different when you look at the 1 hour chart, right? When you look at the 1 hour chart, notice that that this is inside value, right? It just hasn't done much, right, for the week, right? But I wouldn't sell this yet because it just hasn't done anything, right? For something that goes sideways, you wait for a break, right? And of course, here's what IWM has been doing. It's been trending quite nicely. One of the things that I think was a little bit different today was the breadth was stronger today. So you probably will see the NYSE, I'm referring to the McClellan Summation Index, which is something that I generally like to look at every couple of days. You probably see that flash, starting to see a further crossover with the 10-day moving average. We've seen that crossover, but there really hasn't been any momentum to that. So I'll probably tweet that out tomorrow morning. That's if you could bring that up in stock charts, and it's $ NYSI, right, to see if the overall stocks in New York Stock Exchange are advancing versus declining. So we'll continue to need that, and I think as we're getting to kind of a crucial point here in IWM, whether this is going to continue, I would think that number one, right, what I didn't like today, so I liked the breadth today. That was good. What I didn't like was the move in interest rates. Right now, I've talked about, if you go back to what we were looking at on Friday, let's see, I guess I don't have this up any longer. Here we go. I do have this up. Thursday, Friday, we had a little bit of a rally in bonds, right? We gave a little bit of that back yesterday, and today we gave back more of that. So we don't really want to see this get much further. And I think if you do continue to see TLT go down, meaning interest rates go higher, right, that's going to cause IWM, some profit taking maybe in IWM. But if we continue to see more green, right, I think that we could continue to see both IWM and the microcaps continue to rally. So it's going to hinge, I think, on what we're seeing from TLT, and who knows, maybe that could be dictated by Thursday's PCE deflator number, which they're expecting a 0.3% change. All right, so let's talk about a couple. Let's go down to what the sectors are doing. I'm just very pleased at what this did today. I got long XBI, both in my trading account as well as in the TTG trend portfolio. I actually switched this about. I was holding IBB a couple weeks ago, and I switched it to XBI. I mean, it really looks great on the weekly chart, and I was talking about this a little bit earlier. I was talking about how this is how a lot of stocks or sectors, once they finish bottoming, right? This is kind of what you normally see, right? Too many people, too many traders, I think, I'm not trying to be critical of anybody, but they look for, once a stock has gone down, they look for an immediate rebound or like a V recovery. Those can happen, but the probability is not very high, and again, they do happen. But this is more often what you see, right? Basically from, going all the way back to February of, what is this, 2021, right? Here's a decline, right? Now, did you see a V recovery here? No. What happens is you go sideways, right? And you build and you have that one last shakeout, which we did here, right? And now you're beginning to build, and we've got above that range. So, am I saying that this continues to kind of blast higher? No, and I've been taking profits, into this as we go along, right? You trim and you trail, right? And here's my last target, and I've taken multiple targets. I've actually taken 4 targets in this XBI trade, and I'll add back. If we have like an inside week next week, right, that's where I'll be looking to add back. But this was really nice. Hood is another, to switch over to the crypto market. I really like that, this same thing, right? Big long decline, right? Sideways, 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 right? And then you begin to watch for it to kind of curl back up, right? You don't just go buy things because they're down, right? You start to wait, and you have to use patience, right? And wait for them to come back up. Now, you could get fooled here, but as long as you have a stop very close by, right? You kind of have to be aware of that. Right. And then notice what has happened here too is that there's just not a lot of, there will be some overhead supply coming, right, where there was a lot of volume previously. And this is kind of what I'm looking for, is about 1852, right, on the daily chart, right. And another group that seems to be, getting a lot of attention is the Chinese internet names. Now we could kind of go through that chart too, and maybe see if it seems similar to you, right. Here's whoa. um, it's possible, right? I mean, it's gone sideways for a long time, but do I think it just starts to recover like automatically in terms of like what biotech did? No, I think it's going to take. I think you really have to be patient with this stuff. And again, this is a more difficult group, right? The biotech is not run by a communist nation, so you kind of have to think about it that way, right? Because I see a lot of people talking about this, and I'm open to this recovering. The first step is this has to get into the close inside the value area for the year, and then maybe you could try a shorter term trade. It's the same thing with Alibaba. Now, Alibaba, people just post these charts, and they post their trend lines, and they try to crunch them up, but I really think that this is going to have to get into the value area, which is 79. But you're also dealing with so this is where our indicator, like, I think, is just so much better, because it's telling you where there's overhead supply, right? Do you really think that this is just going to go straight up with all those, what they refer to as dead bodies, in terms of sellers that have been, people who bought here and bought here? Once these people are dying to basically get back to flat, right? So they're going to be selling into that, right? People don't realize that when they post these charts with 2 trend lines and saying, "Oh my God, a big move's going to come." Uh, it's gonna you're gonna see selling into these bound. If there's another rip, right? Probably around now. Again, this is a good portion up. That's about 6% up. But you're gonna see, selling maybe at the bottom of value, and probably here too. So, it's much different, right? This is so much more difficult than just buying a name that is breaking out to new highs, comes back into the 20-day moving average, goes right back out to new highs, and rinse and repeat over and over, than trying to wrestle with something like this, right? We talked about this one last week, right? And I gave this one a shot, right? There's no resistance here. You don't have to worry about overhead selling. People get so scared, right? Because they're like, "Oh, I got to buy something that's in a downtrend." I just have to shake my head every time I see people post these charts, right? So here, here was your dip right into support, right? It worked, consolidated here. I talked about it on Twitter. I kind of joked around with it, because everybody, mentions ELF, but it started to kind of look like it was ready to go. Right, just took a position and have my stop nearby, and this was great. I mean, this thing made, I think, like a 15-20% move in a week, right? It's just so much easier when you've got a name that is a quality name. So I took this trade off today. Why did I take this trade off? Because I've been doing this now a few times, and I'll wait for some consolidation. It's going to consolidate again. It may continue to go higher. I was wrong with GE Healthcare, whoops, which I took off the other day. Um, you know, I, but for nice profits, right? Here's GE Healthcare, right? Still going, right? Another strong day for GE Healthcare. And my trigger was above the value area. So this was a nice trade. And now I'll wait for it to consolidate. Right now it's going without me, but that's okay. Right. So what did I do for ELF? Right. I got out at one. I put this on last. I think it was the beginning of last week at 168. I'm out at 203, and yet people are trying to wrestle with BABA about whether or not it's going to turn higher. Um, it's just craziness. A couple other trades. So I got long the Bitcoin ETF last week. That worked really well. And just a few other trades in here too. Again, I just kind of took my money and ran on a couple trades. AZEK was one of them. It hit a small upside target. Sometimes I just have some swing trades on for a couple days. Sometimes I have them on for a couple weeks. It depends. I want to talk about. I'll end this video with just talking about a couple of the popular names, right? And I think that this is not a bad thing, by the way, right? To see some of these names consolidate, right? You want to get all this like hot money, out of the name a little bit. Let this back and fill a little bit. Be patient, right? I got a bunch of questions about this, and I traded SMCI last week. This is just going sideways, right? So let it kind of start to pick up. Look at the volume starting to come in a little bit, right? Let it rest a little bit, right? And again, there's plenty of other areas. Same thing with an SMCI, right? It needs to get. Remember, we outlined this trade last week from the bottom of value to the top of value. I missed the tippy top, but it went back in, and it hasn't really done much since. So I have my alert set at 883.80, right? And you just kind of set it and forget about it, right? Because that's the next area of possible breakout short term. And if it doesn't do that, I don't even need to watch it, right? Just have to make sure that I've got my alert. ARM got a downgrade today. This is the one that I like least out of the three that I just mentioned. But you could trade this if you really want to versus 137, right? That's the top of this week's value area. All right, guys. So this will be the last live stream for this week. I'll have videos, but they'll be for members for the rest of the week. And if you want to be a member, you just go right here, TribecaTradeGroup.com, and you can sign up for just 100. I'm going to change this, by the way. I'm probably only going to have the membership this low. It is really at a low price, 129 a month. So I'll probably move that back to 150 a month, right? We also we only have literally we only have a few more spots left of our trial for the MarketWebs indicator. We wanted to keep it under a certain threshold for a free trial. We still have a 15-day free trial for that, and you can go to marketwebs.com to get the TradingView indicator. And also, we answer questions on Twitter. If you have any questions about the MarketWebs and how we use them on multiple time frames and why they're the best volume at price tool out there. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow. Let me know if there's any questions. You could reach me on Twitter.